How many people have had experience like making a websites of their own? Wow. Okay, that's like everyone here. Wow. Okay. What about on the Zoom? I guess where are your kind of levels at or experience levels at?
On a scale of 1 to 10. Okay, let's leave Zoom. Right?
Okay. Well, yeah.
Oh, nice. Mine is 8.
That's perfect. Okay, because this presentation is perfect for beginners who don't really know much about HTML and CSS. Awesome. Okay. Oh, sorry. Let's go. Oh. Okay. Yeah. So just to get started, my name's Kaylee. Hi, everyone. I'm in second year computer science and business at Waterloo. I'm currently a product director at TOHacks for the judging app, and I really enjoy playing badminton and photography.
So I'm in second year management engineering. I'm a product director here at TOHacks, and I made the website, not me, but me and my team made the website TOHacks.ca, and I like outdoor activities as well.
Awesome. Yeah, so as for our agenda for today, we're going to go through a little bit about web development, and then we're going to dive into HTML and CSS. So for the HTML portion, what HTML is, why and where it is used, and then we're going to dive into a little bit of HTML code. For CSS, same sort of thing, except like some CSS syntax. And then we're going to talk about the applications of HTML and CSS. And finally, we're going to give some resources and leave time for Q&A.
Perfect. So what is web development? So web development is basically websites, right? The best way to bring awareness to anything you have, a personal website, a product, anything you have can be represented through your website. You can also host your products on a website, but that's more advanced stuff that you'll learn later. So there's no limit to your imagination. You can do whatever you want. For example, that is our website, right? Look how beautiful that is. Our designer Jane made the whole thing, and our whole web development team made all of this, right? So this is a big application of websites. And that is one of the most complex websites I've seen. It's pretty cool, actually. But I would recommend you guys to check it out later. theyearofgreta.com has a lot of 3D animations.
My name is Greta Thunberg. We are living in the beginning of a mass extinction. Our climate is breaking down. Children like me are giving up their education to protest. But we can still fix this.
Like very cool.
You can still fix this.
So animations, interactions, all of that. So yeah, that's what else.
All right, so we'll get started with HTML. So kind of how this is going to work is we're going to give like a brief overview of HTML and then a brief overview of CSS, and then we're going to combine it by doing some code using W3 Schools, if you've heard of it. Yeah. So what is HTML? So HTML stands for Hypertext Markup Language, which is web pages pretty much. So markup language is a set of markup tags. So we'll go more into depth later on and provide some examples.
Perfect. So why is HTML used and where? So HTML is essentially the structure you give to a web page, and it's found everywhere. Every single website you see needs to have HTML for it to be parsed by the browser you're using, right? And yeah, that's essentially it.
Yeah. So kind of the HTML syntax basics. There are declarations, headings, paragraphs, links, images, and empty elements. We'll be going through all of them more in depth later on. And then there's semantic elements and coding conventions, which we will also talk about.
Perfect. So let me just explain this simple chunk of code. Okay. Every single website needs to have some of these. Okay. So you need to have the HTML tag. And what a tag is in HTML is basically angle brackets and your keyword inside it, right? So that, and then how you end that tag is you have angle brackets, you add a slash, and you add the keyword again. So that's the start of a tag and end of a tag. And usually good convention is to have a tag opening and a tag closing. So you see HTML, all the HTML files need to have that. Then you have head. In the head, usually you can give properties to the web page. For example, you can have a title. Page title would be what it shows on your browser tab, right? That's what the title represents. Then you have the body tag, right? Inside the body tag is where you put most of your website structure in. So for example, the H1, the P, P stands for paragraph, H1 stands for heading, and the 1 represents the size of the heading. So H1 is the biggest heading you can have, and H2, H3, H4, the size becomes smaller, and H6 is the smallest heading you can have.
Yeah, so here's kind of a more in-depth piece of code showcasing more of the types of tags that you're able to have. So as you can see from this previous one, the body was pretty simple, like Omkaar explained. There was a header 1 and a paragraph. In this body, we showcase kind of a couple more, and you can see what the output is. So with header 1, you can see it's quite a big header, and kind of as Omkaar explained, header 2 is a little bit smaller. So here is the header 2, which is just a tad smaller than header 1. And you can see P paragraph, you have the normal looking text. BR here just stands for break, which is, I guess, the next line. So that's why you see a break point right here, and it moves on to the next line. And yeah, so continuing, there's also a paragraph. You can also do a cool thing with the paragraph elements where you can attach a link to the text so that when you click on the text, it actually goes to the link that you specified. So it's kind of just this tag right here. So a ref is equal to the websites. Yeah, and then so lastly, there's also images. And so all you need to do is specify the source of the image. So this would be locally on your computer. And then you specify an alt, which will actually come back to, and width and height. So as you can see, there's kind of, this is like a basic HTML web page that you can create.
Perfect. And now let's talk about the semantic elements. What are these? Semantic elements are elements with meaning, right? Just by looking at section, the section tag or the aside is maybe iffy, but section, article, and nav tag, you can kind of guess the meaning it has, right? For example, nav stands for navigation. Section would be any section you want in your website, like a full section, not a div. Then you have article, and that you put article. Okay, that's so if you go on a lot of these news websites, they're likely to use article, but they don't really, and that's for different reasons. But back in the day, they used to use article for that. Yeah, and then there's some other tags like form, right? Form that extends on. I'm not going to that actually. Let's just keep that.
Sounds good. And then so lastly, here are some coding conventions for HTML. So some things to remember: try using lowercase element names and attribute names. So as you can see, kind of every tag is lowercase, so it's kind of the standard. And then try closing all elements, and even if they don't require it. So as we've mentioned before, with these closing tags, so like with these slash. Yeah. And then also quote attribute names. So I guess we'll get into classes a little bit later on, but each div has a class. And then specify alt attribute and define width and height when you specify the image. So kind of as we mentioned here. So the alt is just kind of like the alternative, where if the image doesn't generate on the web page, it'll say the text instead. And so width and height is just the width and the height of the image. And then, yeah, avoid spacing where unnecessary. So just so you can keep your code clean and readable, and don't forget the title or the head. So kind of the title and the head. And just as an example, the title is actually what shows right here at the top of the tab. So that's kind of useful to know. Okay.
Perfect. So let's talk a little bit about CSS. So CSS is cascading style sheets. It doesn't really mean anything to the normal user, but if you actually understand what it does, it works wonders, right? So so HTML is just a structure. How do you make it look beautiful? How do you make it look as engaging as our TOHacks website, right? And what you got to do is you got to have CSS on your website. CSS, essentially, how it works is you have the selector. So what a selector is it helps you select the tags you want to focus on, right? For example, if you have a navigation tag, you want to have different styles to it. So you select it using the nav, and then you add the curly braces, the curly brackets, and then you add, then you put declarations in it. And now what are declarations? Declarations are basically property and value, right? for example, you want to have a background color to your section. What do? Background color, and then you give it the color you want to give it. There's many ways to give colors. You can put names, you can put hexes, but that's how you do it, right? You can also define font sizes. You can add animations to your sections, and that's CSS is how you would go about it. So yeah.
And here are just a couple examples of how you would style the text. So for example, P over here on the left is just the paragraph. So it would style anything that has the P tag. So it would change the text to the color red, and then it would align it to the center. And as you kind of remember from before, our paragraph text over here is black and the default is left aligned. So with our kind of style code, it would turn red and then it would become center aligned. And the same goes for kind of this piece of text over here. What we mainly wanted to show was that you can combine a couple of the different tags and put them together and style them the same way. So header 1, header 2, and the paragraph tag here would become lined in the center, and it would also turn red.
Perfect. So now let's talk about the ID and class selector. So when the creators of HTML were making it, they realized that calling something just by the tag is not powerful enough. You need something to select that tag and that tag itself. So they created the class and ID. So to explain this further, let me just give you an analogy of an actual classroom in high school, right? Sorry to point, but he's also in high school. So a classroom in high school. So I was in 9A, I think, grade 9. So let's say 9A, and my roll number was, or my student ID was like 654. Okay, so 654, if someone wants to call me, they would say student number 694. And I would know that's me, right? Because that's me, and throughout the school, that's my role, that's my student number. But if they want to call my class, all the 30 people in my class, they would say class 9A. That's what I said. That was my class.
Yeah.
Okay. So class 9A is what I'm going to call. So that hopefully should help clear it up. Let me give you an example in HTML now. So if you have many paragraphs of P tags and you want to call all of them, you want to make all of them red color, you would give it a class of, for example, red tags, right? And you would give it the color red in CSS. Now, if I want just one of them to be red and the other one to be blue, I say paragraph 1 as an ID and paragraph 2 as the ID, and then I change both of them to red and blue. So that's what ID and class are. You can see an example over there. So to call a class in CSS, you add a dot or you add a period before it, and you add the selector, or you add the class name to it, and then you put your declarations, just like we discussed before. And then to select an ID, you use a hashtag, and then you put the ID name. So that's how you use that.
So yeah, there's 3 main styles to kind of insert a style sheet. So what we've talked to you about is there's HTML code, and we've also shown you CSS code. But how do we combine the two? And so there's 3 different ways. One is having an external style sheet where it's completely 2 separate files. And so inside the HTML file, you would actually indicate this piece of code where it just links the style sheet. And then if your style sheet is called style.css, then that's where you would put kind of the file name. And then it would link the CSS with the HTML. The second way is an internal style sheet. So having the style embedded within the HTML document. So it would look just like this. So you would just do a style tag, and then you would put, I guess, all of your code there to style the HTML page. And then there's also, lastly, the inline style. So if you just wanted to style specifically one line of code, so for example, just this paragraph right here, then we could put an inline style where you just put a space and then style is equal to whatever you want to style it to.
Perfect. Now let's talk about order, right? So to style something, there's different orders you put it in to give it more precedence. For example, every single browser there is, like Mozilla, Chrome, have their own set of CSS rules they have predefined for each website. Now, as a CSS developer, you would need to override those so your website doesn't look clunky. Like it doesn't use settings from the browser and then you have to find something that looks different. So that's how they solve the problem by giving you different CSS defining factors, different precedents. I said that because I didn't know how else to explain it, but let me explain it better. So the inline style, Kaylee, can you show them what inline style is?
Yeah.
Perfect. So inline style is this, right? You put your style property right inside your tag. What that does is it tells the browser that this is the style I want my tags to follow. If I define it anywhere else, if I define it in my CSS file, if I define it in my header tag, don't care about that. This is the style you're supposed to follow, okay? Then the second way, the other, how do I say it? Okay, so that's the most important way to define styles in your tags. Let's just keep that.
Yeah. We'll show you later on what kind of like the precedence is and how like inline style would take over I guess an internal style sheet. Yeah, I guess that's right.
Perfect.
Now.
That's time for demo.
Yeah, so we'll be doing like a quick demo. It'll be more of an interactive demo, so feel free to kind of text in the chat or like raise your hands. So yeah, we'll be going to W3 schools, and for those actually here you guys can go to W3 schools, and okay, I don't know how to use that.
What?
Can you send the link?
Yeah. So where's Zoom? Okay, there you go.
We're in the chat.
I don't know how to use Mac either. What is this? Where's the chat? Wait, this is my computer, by the way. I don't know what's going on.
Oh, there we go.
There we go. Okay. Where's the Zoom in the chat?
Okay.
Oh.
So we can paste the link. I don't know how to paste.
Perfect. 1B.
Okay.
So that's the link you can follow me with. Oh, I could admit it. I couldn't. Perfect.
So I guess we'll start with kind of the basics.
How do I close this? Okay, there we go. Okay, so the basics. Let me just set up so like I said before, to start an HTML file, you need to have HTML start and an HTML end tag. There we go. So that's the HTML start and end. Secondly, okay, question and answers. What other tag do you need to define your styles in it? Come on, man, you got it. Who? Okay, so. Sorry? Perfect, head tag. Nice. So there we go. The head tag. What other tag do you need? Guys on the right. Body tag. Perfect. Okay. So now what do we do?
So there's one more thing that we want to specify in the head tag so that we have kind of the name change, like the tab name change.
Perfect.
That is the title tag.
Oh, were we supposed to ask them?
That's okay.
Okay. Title tag. Let's just name it TOHacks. There you go.
So we can start off by showing, I guess, a piece of code.
Perfect. So let's go with the H1 and let's say TOHacks and Andy. Okay, let's just say that rocks. There you go. So TOHacks and Andy rocks. Okay. Now let me just show you what H2 to H6 would do, right? So if I have an H2 here, and if I have an H6 here.
Before you click run, Omkaar, what do you guys think H2 and H3 are gonna do? I know all of you guys are here.
Okay, even guys on the Zoom, feel free to answer this. Subheaders. You're kind of right, Anthony. You're close. You're close.
Yeah, I guess that's actually, pretty much the idea.
That is actually the idea. You're actually right. So subheaders is right. So now if I run it, it's going to show 3 different variations, right? So there's H1, which is the largest tag, H2, which is a bit smaller, and H6, which is the smallest heading tag you can have on a website. And obviously that's just HTML default. You can go in CSS and you can customize your own settings in that. Yeah, what else do we need? I
guess we can kind of do that right now.
Yeah, we can do that right now. So let's say I want to make the H6 tag as big as the H1 tag. right? So I can go over here in style and essentially, how do I, okay guys, now let me ask another question. How do I select the H6 tag? What do I put to select the H6 tag in CSS? You got it? Damn, nice. So you put H6 and then you put the brackets, you go there, and then I want to increase the font size. So I'm going to say font size. And there's different ways you can have different metrics for font size. So you can have px, which is pixels. You can have percent, which is the percent of the container it's in. Let's not talk about percent. There's em, which is it's basic. Let's not talk about that either. Okay, the best one to use, which I usually use, is px. Okay, so let's say I want to make it 35px because I think that's the h1 size. Now if I run it, it becomes as big as the h1, if not bigger, right? So it's an h6, but it acts like an h1, which is what's cool about CSS. Even though no one does this in the industry, you can still do it. That's one cool thing about this. And what else do we need?
We can try to change the color. So
yeah.
What's your favorite color? I can't see your name tag.
Ethan.
Ethan. Okay. Blue.
Blue?
Okay. We'll
Okay.
change the text to blue.
I like that. My favorite color is blue. Everyone likes blue. So okay, let's just say H1, and let me say color or background color.
We'll do the
Let's do background. Yeah, background. Color, and that would be blue. So now that becomes blue, right? Let's just say we don't want it to be that color of blue. So how would I go about changing the kind of blue it is? There's different ways to define colors in CSS, right? So you can either call it by the name, or you can even use the hashtag. So I can say hashtag. So it's RGB. The first two characters are R, second two B, third two, last two G. And
so red, blue, green.
Red, blue, green. Sorry. So red, blue, and green. I would recommend reading up on that because that is the formation of CSS, basically color CSS. And it's RGB.
Red, green.
It's RGB, guys. Sorry, it's RGB. So FF, and now it's gonna be blue.
There you go.
Now, if I want to change the type of blue I have, I'll make this AA, and it's gonna be a different kind of blue. So that's how you use colors in CSS. And yeah.
And I guess we can also show like lists.
List?
Ordered lists.
Oh yeah, sure. So there's ways to add bullet points in CSS, in HTML, right? So you can have UL, so that's unordered list, and then you can have inside a list item, right? So it's very intuitive. So LI is list item.
So unordered list just means there is no order, and it's going to show up as a bullet point.
Perfect, a bullet point. And then if I want to give it an order, 1, 2, 3, something like that, I can go here and make it OL, which is ordered list, and then I click run, and there's my one. So you can see it over here actually. The bullet
You
point.
can try
and the
putting
one.
some elements in it.
Yeah.
So just right in between the list tag.
Yeah.
And then we can
What should I write? I'll write people's names
Yeah.
here. So I'll write Sohil. And then I'll write Ethan. Ethan. Let me run it now. Perfect. So there you go. And let me write Emily, right? Your name is Emily? Emily, perfect. Okay, Emily. And then who else? Who else wants their name on this?
I can't see anyone else's name.
I can't see anyone. Do you want your name on this? Grace. Okay. So Grace. And now if I click run, it's gonna show Emily and Grace. So that's it.
Is there anything you guys want to see maybe? If you were to make your like own personal websites, if there's anything that you would like us to show or help out with? Or yeah, I guess we can also take questions right now.
Yeah, we can take questions.
And then we'll go to kind of our resources portion of the presentation. Awesome. Yeah, feel free to like type in chat if you do have any questions, but I guess we'll move on to the resources section.
Perfect. So there you go, that's yours.
Okay. So where is this important? So where is HTML and CSS important? We kind of talked about it in the beginning, all the different types of uses for HTML and CSS. But I guess on the grand scheme of things, everything's advertised through a website now. Every time you Google search something, a bunch of websites pop up. It's the only way to kind of get your product out there or advertise yourself with personal websites. It's the only way to reach users across the world. So websites are extremely useful to be able to kind of understand and know how to make. Yep, and as for resources, W3 Schools is a really good resource to use as there's kind of like tutorials and everything. So here you can see on the side, there's like introduction and then basics, and then it goes on and it gets a lot more complicated, and you can build really cool stuff with just kind of this knowledge that you get from this W3 Schools tutorial. And there's also actually quizzes, which are very nice. So it tests your learning so you can remember and retain more of it. And the second resource is from Khan Academy. I'm sure you've all heard of it. So right over here, there's like videos, and then there's challenges. There's articles that you can read. So it's also HTML and CSS. And we'll be posting all of these in chat if you would like to take a look. And lastly, there's a boot camp called Front End Masters. So this is actually completely free, and it helps you, it takes you through like a couple of projects so that you can actually build out something in the end. And it's pretty useful just to get hands-on experience and see your work, I guess, live. So it's a 21-hour video learning, and it's project-based. Yeah, so I guess, yeah, lastly, just Q&A. Any questions? Either about HTML or CSS, either about Omkaar and I, because